Hi guys, welcome to my channel. How are y'all doing today? So here today on Abby the Witch, we are actually going to be doing a VR to Sanctuary Satanica's video all about demon work, demonolatry. And as a witch, I think that it is very important to talk about how to approach demons, how to approach demon work. There are different methods for working with demons. We'll get into that. Um, but I think some of the most popular ways and some of the most well-known ways are also the most problematic. Um, and again, we'll get into all of this, but that's why I think it's so important that as a witch, there should be a certain way to approach demonolatry, to approach demon work. Okay. Um, Solomonic magic, ceremonial magicians, they all have their ways of doing it, which are, in my opinion, the problematic ways. Um, but as witches, I think that we should approach it very differently. I really wanted to base my video off of Sanctuary Satanica's video, aka Angela's, um, because I really liked her video. She had some really good points. She explained it very well. And I just want to base my video off of that. And she gave me the okay, so here we are. Also, I tried recording this like a million times and like another way, like just like me talking with my notebook, and it was really bad. So I got her permission to just like react to her video, like actually like as I'm watching it, and she was okay with it. With all that being said, you guys, let's go ahead and jump into my video about demon work and listen to what Angela has to say.
Ave Satanis, you're watching Sanctuary Satanica. Welcome back. This video is more me giving
She's so cute.
advice. I've worked with demons for quite a while now, and I have observed other people who do so or claim to do so for quite a while now. There's some
Yeah, she has way more experience being on the left-hand path and working with demons than I do. Um, that's not to say I don't have experience with it. I do. I've been doing it for a while now too. But she's definitely been on the left-hand path for a lot longer than me. And that's another reason that I'm basing my video off of her is just I find her to be a wonderful resource when it comes to Satanism, left-hand path, demon work, yada yada. She's a wonderful resource.
things I've observed, there's some things I've experienced. I know preemptively people are going to have disagreements with what I say, and that's fine. I
Yeah.
feel quite secure in my own gnosis and my own abilities and my own relationships with the spirits I choose to work with. Kind of split this video between what I consider do's and don'ts of demonic work. Um,
Hmm.
Now, my opinions and my approach may even vary from other Satanists and from other people on the left hand path. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So, hold on, let me get back. Her first one is my biggest don't. Um, so FYI, I don't know if I'm going to be able to cover like every single detail just because that would make this video way too long. Um, but I am going to cover the things that I think are the most important. Um, and the things that resonate the most with me. And that's not to say that this whole video isn't important of hers. Obviously, I really like this video, like I already said, but it's just to save time. Anyway, yeah. And she gets into this later into the video more in detail, but there are going to be people that always disagree with you. And that's like, I mean, that's just life in general. But if we're talking specifically demon work, yeah, there's going to be people that gatekeep and disagree with you and or just disagree with you, and that's fine. but your gnosis is your gnosis, right? Um, just because someone has a different gnosis than you doesn't mean necessarily mean that yours is invalid. Um, and some people have very different ways of approaching demons than you do. Like I said in the beginning, some of them are, in my opinion, problematic, but everyone's going to do it a little bit differently. And that's okay. That's okay. Don't let that like discourage you, you know?
The Solomonic method, the fucking triangle, and all that. I have broken down before, and I will try to hunt down my old TikTok and
Oh, this
insert it
is awesome.
here
We have to watch this.
about what the fuck I think of that. You see here, the magician going here. Supposedly the demon in physical manifestation in this tiny ass triangle over here. Okay.
Other way.
You're protected in this ridiculous, overly jacked up circle here with the pentagrams around it. Okay. This triangle here, we've written the fucking names of Sky Daddy over it. Sky Daddy over a pyramid shape, over a symbol of masculine authority. On top of that, there's also a circle inside. And you're wanting the spirit to physically manifest in there. One problem, though, as you're in here and you declare that the only things that can get in or out of here is things under your authority, which you claim to be using God's authority and do it, but really, you're still human. You don't have the power of the angels and God. You're just you. So the only shit you have authority over is yourself. Never mind, that demon can't fit in there. Is yourself. So
Yeah, honestly, it's like very conceited, in my opinion. This method is like you're a fucking human being, like Angela was saying, you're a fucking human being. You do not have the power of God. You do not have the power of angels. You cannot control this demon. Sorry about you. Um, and it's very conceited to think so.
So you're ripping away, while you're in a Gnostic state, you're ripping away part of your subconscious and putting it over here. Because that's the only fucking thing that's going to physically manifest in front of you. Okay?
Yeah.
And then Solomon says,
It's interesting that she says that. It's interesting. I've never really thought of it that before, but it makes so much sense. That if you're gonna force this demon to physically manifest in your space, um, it's just like your shadow self, or even like your inner child, or your deep conscience, or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting because again, you're not gonna force a demon to do anything. You're not gonna force a demon to physically manifest. And if you do, they're probably just playing along for a little while. And she gets into that later too. This video resonates with me so much. Like yeah. Anyway, let's keep watching.
Because it's a demon, to bully it and harass it and at times physically abuse it to do magic for you. The problem being, you just harass your shadow self. In my opinion, the shadow self is a mask for the inner child. So you just did a lot of psychological damage to yourself. This is why so many white magicians say that demons are just reflections of themselves, because that's all they're doing. That's all they're talking to. They're not summoning shit. They're manifesting a thought form outside them.
And another point too, if like all you're doing is torturing your inner self or your shadow self or whatever, and causing yourself spiritual, mental damage, right? That can be why so many people have claimed to go insane working with demons, right? That could definitely be part of it. It's like, yeah, because you tortured yourself. You made yourself go insane. It wasn't the demon. The demon wasn't even there. It was you the whole time.
That is a part of their shadow. Every single person I've seen that has used the method as laid out in the Goetia, the grimoire, in long-term use, they miss quite a few things that are important. And because they miss those things, it bites them in the ass later. It takes its sweet time. They get a lot of good results for what they want initially. I've noticed that they get very fast results for the things that they are requesting, but they don't take the time to assess what they are requesting and why. And that catches up with them on its
They
own,
try to rush it too, you know?
which they end up blaming on the demon. I have
Yeah.
noticed every single one of these people lose their fucking marbles.
There you go.
Lose their fucking marbles, fall apart several times. attract traumatic experiences that are just out of the blue.
Um,
Demons don't.
so it's so funny because every time I think about this, or like when I heard her say this, I always think of that actor, Christopher. I think his name's Christopher Lee. I'm not a big actress person. I don't know names. Well, I think his name is Christopher Lee. I looked it up yesterday. If I remember right, that's his name. He is quoted saying that if you get involved with the occult, specifically Satanism and left-hand path things, you will lose your mind and you will lose your soul. And every time I hear someone say, "Oh, you're going to lose your mind," or "Oh, I started seeing things," like I've heard multiple people say this though, not even just that actor, but I've heard people say like, "I left the occult because I started going insane," or "I started having nightmares," or whatever. It's not for everyone. That's part of it too. It's really not for everyone, especially demon work. It's fucking intense. It's really intense. Um, so yeah, if you do it the wrong way, you might not be able to handle the results, you know? Not that it's bad work, it's not. It's great work, but it's you have to handle it the right way. You have to approach it the right way.
Don't like it. They'll play along for a while, but they do not like it. And if you don't learn to respect them and stop using that, um, things happen. You know, I'm not
Yeah,
going to say like you're being
and you'll
punished
probably
because I
lose
don't
your
really
mind.
know how it works. I've just seen it
Right.
happen a
Yeah.
lot. Would not recommend.
Are you ready to bargain?
That leads me to my next point with this transactional gimme gimme rub the rub the lamp get the genie kind of thing behavior. I call it the vending machine attitude towards demons.
Hmm.
Again, it's not that it wouldn't get you results. By all means, there's nothing wrong with a fair trade.
Right.
This
Right. Exactly.
attitude
I was about to say that.
with the catch 'em all thing paired together, you don't realize how different each one is, and many of them were gods before certain people classified them as demons. And
Yeah.
so they all have different origins, they all have different secrets and mysteries and ways of speaking and communicating and getting their point across.
Hmm.
And some of them like to test you initially. And
Hmm.
so if you don't sit back and think on those words or think on that message and really digest it, and I'm speaking from my own experiences here, if you don't sit back and digest it and really understand what you have received, you can act rashly, especially when you're used to getting quick results, and fuck yourself. Again, this is something people tend to blame on the demon, tend to think that they were lied to when really they made assumptions.
Mm.
This is
Hmm.
something humans do a lot. If you read any stories about the devil or fairies interacting with people, oftentimes, like, those beings, especially fairies, are compelled never to lie, but it's because how literally they tell the truth. A lot of people have a hard time with that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And I think even if the gimme gimme attitude that she's referring to, the approaching demons and trying to force them or expecting something out of them, right? Is never a good way to do it. Um, I think that, and she's right, every demon is different. Just like every person is different. Um, I think that, like when she was saying there's nothing wrong with a fair trade, I agree. I think that you can make pacts with spirits or even demons, but even then, there's still a very special, certain specific way that you should go about it. You take your time, you do it respectfully, you don't force anyone to do anything, and there's a fair trade, right? Um, Otherwise, yeah, you're gonna rush, you're gonna, like she said, make assumptions, you're gonna assume the wrong thing, you're gonna fuck yourself, like Angela said. Um, Yeah, so even if you are looking for a pact, a fair trade type of thing, there, yeah, it should be fair. It should be respectful. And it's still a process, right? It's never this really quick. It's not like that. Okay, you still need to have some sort of relationship and gain some sort of relationship. Again, this is my opinion. But yeah, I really feel that way.
Evocation. That's a parlor trick. Okay? That is a fucking parlor trick you're asking.
Yeah, evocation is the basically um forcing a demon or a spirit into your space and making them manifest physically. Use evocation, basically.
A very powerful spirit to do. I'm not saying it cannot be done. I'm not saying that it's always wrong to do, but I am saying it's pointless. Now, I'm going to say you can't make a demon do something it don't want to do, despite the popular belief that you can. You cannot. A demon might act out things and fuck with you, especially if you come with that attitude. They love fucking with people's assumptions. They love fucking with people's egos. You know, they love playing with that. That is the energy that they're comfortable in anyway, and that's the energy that they have you deal with anyway. But if you're too far up your own ass and you think you're high and fucking mighty and you think
The
you
power to
have
do that.
angels under your command and shit,
Yeah.
like you're already Delulu, so they might as well fuck with you. Physical manifestation
The
is something
Lulu.
that best happens outdoors because when it happens indoors, it's really difficult to ground the energy afterward. And it's honestly really scary indoors, in my opinion. I've had a few happen. Um, Most of the experiences I've had with physical manifestation have happened outdoors, which
I have never physically manifested a demon in my like indoor space. Um, I feel like I've seen it outside. I've not evoked. I've just again like the title suggests it was just came it I just saw it. I got lucky and they visited me physically, but it wasn't like I forced them to come. But yeah, no, I agree with her. There you cannot force a demon, an ancient god, to do anything. Um, and it is like I said in the beginning, it's very conceited to think that you could. You're not that special. Sorry.
I am grateful for. Something that can be a beautiful, genuine experience. To try to like force that to happen just feels really,
Cringe.
I don't know, it just makes me kind of sick, to be honest. And
Yeah,
if it doesn't
same.
make you sick, have fun seeing where it leads you, I guess.
Ancient
I mean,
gods,
like,
modern problems.
ancient gods. I mean, before most of these other cultures that we consider ancient. I mean, Sumerian, Mesopotamian, Canaanite. I mean, long, 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 long time ago, at pretty much the dawn of civilization.
Yeah, they're very, very, very fucking old. It always makes me giggle when people say demons or Satan or whoever are all like Christian concepts. Because they're not. They're not. They're way older than that.
Yes, they are ancient gods, but they are also very up to date. They understand a lot of modern concepts. You won't find that from many other pantheons. I've worked
Mhm.
with many deities before I've worked with the hellish, and although they were helpful, although they were very loving, they did not understand a lot of my human problems the way
Mhm.
that the demonic do.
Mhm.
And the demonic understand not only understand my problems, but have seen them thousands of times before, helped humans through it millions of times before, and can see beyond it for me. Like, I can deal with modern issues with the demonic. I don't bring every issue to them, but it is something that I really
Plus a
appreciate
shitload
about them,
more.
and I feel like more people should, you know, respect and care about. I think when we see spirits be more like us, there's a tendency for a lot of people, especially with a right hand path background, to see that as less divine or less important. Inevitably, demons deal with that energy all the time. Just be careful with your ego with that one.
Yeah. Um, I agree. I feel like out of all the spirits, deities that I've worked with or worshipped, however you want to put it, demons definitely are the most like relatable when it comes to being a human. Um, I don't know why. I guess maybe because like what Angela was saying, what I was just saying, they're very, very old. So they've kind of like evolved with mankind, maybe. Um, but yeah, I agree. There's something about them that's very like raw and very like, yes, they're in a different realm, but like they're also very like earth dwelling too. Again, this is my opinion. Maybe this is just how I feel. I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well. But there's something about them that's very like earth, um, and therefore very like connected to humans in a way. Um, yeah, practice patience.
Invocation is when we invite an energy in, whether
Invoke.
welcoming it into a
Yes,
space
that's what I've done.
or into ourselves.
Yeah.
So when we're invoking, it's important to be patient. This may take several attempts for some people. This may take several attempts for one demon when previously all other demons came very quickly or came before you even sat down at the altar. You know, others will wait for you to come to them and they want to see if you are devoted.
Hmm.
Think of it this way: if you had a million requests from people all the time, maybe you'd be a little fucking choosy. Some demons are very happy to be around many people, and others are not. So some
Again, they're
require a
all
bit
different.
more work to get to know them,
Yeah,
and it I feel really boils down to your approach. Also, be
sure.
patient with yourself. Like, this isn't something that naturally comes to many people, if you especially if you've not practiced other forms of magic. I would recommend getting experience and grounded in some form of magic before you attempt this, only
Oh,
because of the
absolutely.
intensity behind these beings and the intensity behind the knowledge they can give and the results that they can deliver.
Right. Yeah, well, there you go. There's the next. Yeah, invocation. Just inviting them into your space. This is an invitation. This is not forcing. This is an invitation for them to enter your space. I have done this several times with my sacred family. Um, my infernal sacred family. Um, I've done it many different ways, you know. Um, and it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice. Um, Sometimes I visit them on a witch flight. As a trad witch, I take flight a lot. Um, and sometimes I visit them, right? I don't invoke, I go visit them on a flight. Um, but I have invited them into my space, using their sigils. I have done like, I don't do high ceremonial magic very often, but I have done that before in my space where I've drawn things on my floor. I drew a huge pentacle on my floor, and then like, around the pentacle, I drew all their sigils, and I invoked them using my blood, and I invited them into my space. That wasn't to trap them into the circle or anything like that. That was more like my intention was to make more like a portal, I guess, for them. Um, I've done it that way, but I've also just done like on a piece of paper, like I've drawn a circle around a sigil before and just like repeated their name over and over and over again and invited them into my space, and that worked too. Um, so yeah, just try different ways. Do your research, sure, but there is something to say about just personal experience. And I do absolutely agree. here that before you start working with demons, I would definitely have some experience with other forms of magic and witchcraft. Um, that's just because, I mean, sure, you can dive on in if you want to, I guess, but it's going to be a lot easier for you and you're going to be able to handle it a little bit better if you actually practice and create kind of like your own witchcraft practice first, right? Have that foundation first, okay? Um, it's kind of like learning to play a sport, right? Like practice shooting some hoops first before you go into a fucking game and compete. You know what I mean? Like build that skill set first, and then you can get into it and have the experience is the next part.
So part of having patience is having the experience. I say having the experience because sometimes when we do too much research, we are just filling ourselves up with other people's gnosis. I
Hmm.
have seen, sidebar, I have seen so many different correspondences for the same demons across different platforms. I have seen at least five, I think maybe 3 to 5 different planets supposedly associated with Asmodeus. I think it was like Mars, the sun, you know, if we're going by the Goetia, then the sun, Mercury, and Neptune. Like, those are like four. I was close. 4 different planets that I've seen, you know, different sources like associated with Asmodeus. I have my own thoughts and my own gnosis, but I'm really grateful I didn't like stress myself out over everyone
Yeah,
else's information about the demon before I got, you know, to know that demon. If it's your first time,
that's a good way to put it. Before you do a bunch of research on the demon, I like that. Just get to know them, you know, get to know them first. Again, through invocation, through meditation, through flight. Just get to know them and see what they say, you know? See what offerings they tell you they like. See just see what their person what their vibe is, you know?
ever contacting a demon, yeah, like do some research, but sometimes you're just confronting a lot of fear mongering shit. I remember when I first got
Oh yeah,
into
for sure.
contacting goetic spirits, which is just so funny looking back because I was praying to Lilith every day. So like I don't know what the fuck I was worried about, but I wanted to start with Astaroth because I heard she was friendly, and she was. It was a very nice time. But as I've gotten to know her, like she's actually quite strict. Like she's very loving and she's very caring, but she's actually quite strict with me. Belial, by contrast, like everyone who was sharing gnosis on Belial was saying at the time, like he's dangerous, and if you're inexperienced, you shouldn't be talking to him. I
Dangerous.
couldn't help myself. Like I
Of
was
course he
just
is. He's
drawn
a
to
demon.
him. I had this
He
dream.
can be.
In my dream, there was a demon with like eyes that were glowing different colors. And when I woke from this dream, I still saw those eyes. And I remember trying to like debunk it to myself and like try to see like, okay, like what could have glowed in my bedroom to make me think it was that. Couldn't make sense of it in a rational kind of way. And you know, from then on, I decided to give it more of a go. I decided to put aside those fears and contact God. Honestly, I'm not saying
Yeah, it's important to unlearn these fears. And she's right. When you do a bunch of research, it is a lot of fear. There is a lot of fear mongering out there. For example, I actually have, it's actually a really popular tarot deck. It's technically a tarot deck. I use it as an oracle deck, but I think it's called the occult tarot, and it's literally all of the demons of the Goetia. And I love it for demon work. However, the creator of this deck is a ceremonial magician. I would describe him as that. I don't know if he actually I don't know, but he uses the Solomonic method, and he describes demons as jealous of humans. He describes demons as things that you need to trap. And he describes demons as beings that are controlled by an angel. Each demon is controlled by an angel. Um, and I remember laughing at that when I first got this deck. I got this deck. It's probably been a couple of years by now, but um, yeah, I don't use the deck in that way. I don't use the deck in that way, but um, be careful what you read is my point. Because if I would have read that several years ago when I started out being a witch, before unlearning all of this fear that I had been taught as a young person, and then I would have gotten myself into a pickle. Okay. So, yeah, that's why it's important to really have that foundation. That's part of why it's so important to have like a witchcraft practice already, to work on unlearning all of this fear and know what is fear mongering when you do go out and do research, you know? Because again, if you go out before unlearning all this fear and all this scaffolded information that's in your brain that you learned in Sunday school when you were a kid, it's gonna, it, it's not gonna be, this work is not gonna be productive for you. Okay. So it's really important to debunk all this fear first, and then you can approach it with a new lens.
And, you know, from then on, I decided to give it more of a go. I decided.
Since she's talking about infernal spirits, and kind of what her experience has been with them, like personality wise or whatever, I guess I can tap a little bit on mine too. I started out working with the devil. I say working with, I say worship now. Um, Angela calls them Satan. She's a Satanist. I prefer to call myself a trad witch. So I work with the devil. I worship the devil. I then went on to Lilith. Then I actually started working with Vul. And Vul and I get along really fucking well. I love my entire Infernal family. Vul and I get along really, really well. And I actually pulled his card from the occult tarot deck. And that's how I knew that I needed to work with him. And I gave him an offering. He's a romantic. He is such a romantic. He's very cultured. He's very studious. He's very academic. He's very romantic also, in like a philosophical sense. Um, so he and I get along very well because I'm also a romantic. Um, I gave him an offering of roses and a few other things. And then that night I had a dream of him and he was giving me roses back. So I took that as accepting my offering and also accepting this relationship that we then started building together. Um, he helps me with past, present, and future. He helps me with love of women, building relationships with women. Not in a sexual way. It could be if I want it to be, but just in a platonic type of way. Um, he's also very, very connected to the ocean. I put seashells next to him. I've read somewhere after I like picked up on that through my own personal gnosis, I read somewhere that he is connected to Leviathan, but I haven't been able to find that information since. So I don't know. Maybe I dreamed that too. I don't know. Um, Lots of times when I go visit Vul on a flight, it'll be on a beach. Not always. Sometimes it's in hell. But yeah, he has some sort of connection to the ocean. And the next demon that I work with that I worship is Balaam. And Balaam and I that's the newest relationship that I have gained. Um, so I'm still getting to know him. I'm still getting to know him. Balaam has been kind of distant. I'm not gonna lie. He's been a little harder to get to know. I think that's you have to really prove yourself and prove your commitment to him You have to prove your genuine interest in getting to know him, your genuine interest in having a relationship with him. That's really important to him. Um, so it's um, I giggle because he's just I don't know. He's kind of bougie. Not in a, like I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Respectfully. I can kind of be bougie too. Okay. So anyway, that's my sacred family: Lilith, the devil, Vul, and Balaam. Um, yeah.
To put aside those fears and contact Allah. Honestly, I'm not saying that he's never been like hard on me, but I feel like it's always in the ways I need and always in the ways that I'm really looking for when I do call upon him. And he has shown me how to love myself in ways that are so wonderful, honestly, really sweet. And that's not to downplay how powerful he is or how dangerous he could be, but I feel it's just so silly to fearmonger about a demon that literally like prefers to work with neurodivergent underdog people. When I look
Hmm.
around at the people devoted to Belial, I'm seeing a lot of like anxious autistic people. Like I'm seeing a lot of like, you know, gay people and people who were bullied, people who were bullied or people who were
Yeah.
had a hard childhood or something, and Belial is called to them. In my experience, Belial is more interested in building someone up to be strong than finding someone who's already strong.
Mm.
Sometimes you really shouldn't listen to what other people say about a demon, and you really should just go in on your own. I know that's contradictory advice to what most people say. Most people say, oh, use all this caution. I think they're using the wrong kind of caution. I
Mm.
think
Yeah.
when you say that, people end up trying to magically protect themselves from the spirit they're asking help from. That's not the kind of caution you need to have. You need to have the kind of caution of checking yourself. I
Yeah.
remember I was tested once.
Yeah. That using the wrong kind of caution is a really good way to put it. Um, don't use the kind of caution, again, unlearn that fear that you were taught about demons, right? That's not the kind of caution that you should be using when approaching demons. Okay. But she's right. The kind of caution you should be using is checking yourself, checking your ego, and really thinking about things that they tell you. Really being careful, not making assumptions. Okay. Take your time, really reflect on things.
I said, what sort of offering would you like? And the demon replied, nothing in particular. And my human assumption was, okay, I don't need to give that demon an offering.
Yeah.
He just wanted to do this for me. But big guy, big guy, pulled me aside, and was like, hey, that guy's a king of hell. He's a very important one. And he should not have to fucking ask for offerings. So find him something he'll like. That's what he means with nothing in particular. How dare you ask me? So I was already on thin ice, and I didn't even know. But luckily, because I honor Satan, I was spared, and I got him a suitable offering, and I gave it to him, and he forgave me. Take your time, be patient, and really seriously consider if you're doing, impulsive methods that are going to get you hurt. Path working through a trusted spirit, preferably a high ranking one. I know different hierarchies work differently and position spirits on different levels, and sometimes they are from different hierarchies. Beelzebub, Satan, Lucifer, Samael, Lilith, Leviathan, like a big name that you trust, and path work through them to meet new demons. Working
Yeah, like I was saying a little bit ago, I started with the devil, then Lilith, then Vul, then Balaam. Um, Vul and Balaam weren't necessarily, well, then belong. Um, and she's right. It's I didn't even really do that on purpose, but it makes sense. So that they can kind of help lead you to these other demons, right? These bigger uh, these bigger names like Satan or the devil, Lilith, Beelzebub, infernal spirits like that. They can kind of help get you there, right? Instead of just starting out with Vool, I would definitely start out meeting Satan. If you're interested in demon work or the devil or Lilith, I would start out meeting one of those big names first.
Working with a spirit of a deeper hell, that can help protect you from imposters, that can help protect you from egregores, that can help protect you from various energies that you are trying to avoid as you are interacting with the demonic, especially as you approach a new spirit, a spirit you have not worked with before.
Yeah,
Just so that it's verified,
it's
just so
safer.
that
Sure.
anything that would play games
Right.
isn't coming through. And instead, we're going to get the real spirit. You should be using some divination methods to confirm what you're interpreting. Again, preferably through a pathworking spirit of a lower hell. Do not assume that all grimoires or reports of someone's gnosis are even accurate. When it comes to right hand path texts, let's just cover that briefly. Consider who wrote them, consider their motivations,
Absolutely.
consider their politics, consider their cultural agendas.
Yep.
That's all I have to say about that for now. And then when it comes to left hand path people, a lot of people on the left hand path like to publish things incorrectly on purpose for a variety of reasons. But often, to protect real information from getting to the wrong hands or whatever, a key
Mm-hmm.
component that without the right gnosis, without the experience, you're not going to be prepared for.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's so important to unlearn a lot of the fears. That's why it's so important to have that experience first, have that information first, and some knowledge first before jumping in, so that when you do research, you do, so that when you do go do the research, you can catch on to things like that, right? You can catch on to the fear mongering. You can catch on to the misinformation. You can catch on to, oh, I think they're doing this on purpose so that I don't actually, so that if it gets into the wrong, yeah, you see what I'm saying? So you can catch on to all of this.
In terms of what you leave out and what you keep, you may just have to learn from experience. Sometimes that happens too.
Yeah. And you evolve too, like things information that I held on to years ago, when I first started out, is a lot of it's a lot different to what I hold on to now. It's okay. It's okay to leave some things behind. It's okay. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to evolve in your practice as a human and change. Um, we all got to start somewhere, and try not to be ashamed too as you grow in your practice, the things that you once used to believe. Try not to be too ashamed of it. It's okay. We all start somewhere.
Find your own methods. This takes some time, like I said, patience. If you have a foundation to your practice already, this is much easier to do.
Yeah, like I was
When
saying
I
earlier.
first started working with the demonic, I had experience, like I said, working with other kinds of deity.
Yes.
And there were kind of two methods I would employ, sometimes combined. The first being treating them like any other deity, putting out images of them, things like, colors that I think they'd like, incense I think they'd like. Kind of stopped giving offerings to spirits that I don't know. When I was newer to everything, I did that, but I think don't give like any offering other than the space is set up, because you're just meeting each other. You're not expecting anything from each other, you're just meeting each other, making space to meet each other. So that was the first method I did. I just would set up a space and I would spend time in that space and I would ask that entity to grace me with its presence. The other method would be, using a sigil and an N, meditating and gazing at the sigil. Some
Yeah.
people say this is an egregore issue. I'm saying it could be. First time you ever do this, you could run into that. But I find it's a good way to attune, just the N chanting and gazing at a sigil